What's up, guys? It's Peak Octane, and today we have a wet race at Spa. As you can probably see with the highlights showing, definitely threw a wrench in the weekend because throughout practice there was no wet weather. We had some overcast, but there was no wet weather, so there was no wet practice whatsoever. So kind of a difficult task going into the race, not knowing exactly how to perform those first few corners in terms of how early to brake and whatnot. Showed some signs of struggling for grip, but at the end of the day, not too bad considering the challenge put in front of us. And if you're an F1 fan in general, I hope you're enjoying kind of these livery reveals that are going on right now. I know we had McLaren the other day. We got AlphaTauri coming up, as well as Alfa Romeo before a little bit of a break, unless some of the other teams decide to fill in those spots. But nonetheless, exciting times. We are coming up close to the 2021 season, about a month away from testing, so that'll be a lot of fun to watch. I'll try and cover a little bit of it as time goes on throughout the season, but most of my focus will still be on gaming side of things. So with that being said, let's get into the video and roll the intro. Okay, and we did our first two practice sessions, and then we, as usual, skipped out on the third, which is perfectly fine. We didn't need it. We were able to fit all of our practice programs in, and you know, we showed pretty good pace throughout practice, so I was actually really excited going into qualifying. But looking at this first run, we did not do too hot. I think that ended up having us, I want to say, almost dead last in the field. And then we had one more run in Q1, but we made crucial mistakes on the last few corners, and that cost us dearly. And unfortunately, that will keep us in P21 going into this race, and we are out in Q1 again. Now, this is still the first season, so you know, we still have to keep expectations kind of minimal, but it would have been nice to have at least gotten past the backmarker teams, because we really do have a pretty decent car at this point. I mean, obviously it's not up with the top tier. It's kind of in the back of the middle contenders, which is perfectly fine. Also quickly showing there that I was able to get enough points to throw on another upgrade. And with that, we will get into the race at Spain.
Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Lewis Hamilton lines up on pole position, and Valtteri Bottas will line up alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Verstappen, Leclerc, Alexander Albon, and Vettel, Sainz, Stroll, Perez, and Lando Norris. Ocon, Kvyat, Antonio Giovinazzi, and Gasly, Magnussen, Raikkonen, Roman Grosjean, and Mick Schumacher. Russell, Ricciardo, they've taken a grid penalty, Cook, and Nicholas Latifi. Now, it's almost time for lights out, so let's go down to the track.
And here we are showing the underfuel that we are going to do. It's actually not much of an underfuel, because technically we're only running 17 laps, so having 17.2 of fuel gives us a lot to burn off, but still using way less than what was recommended to us. And I noticed that the tire split was halfway through the race, which is perfectly fine, but one thing to keep note about this race is it is supposed to dry up at some point. Granted, this is a short race, but you know, it said it was going to dry up about a third of the way through, so I wanted to keep that in mind, especially going through these first few laps, seeing how the weather evolved, because these tires can go a lot longer than half the race, and I do want to admit mistake there. I kind of locked up, and that really had me sliding into that corner a lot further than I wanted to, and made some contact, and I did make that position on Magnuson, even though in hindsight I probably should have returned the position back, but I was really just trying to get acquainted with the car in the rain. I wasn't necessarily hitting my corners or getting great acceleration off the turn, so I was really focused on that at the time. And but anyways, we did get a good start. We're up 5 positions. We're in P16 after starting 21st, and we're still keeping an eye on that weather because, like I was saying earlier, I think there was a real opportunity to make up a ton of ground on strategy, because if I run a really long first stint, or not even really long, but just an extended first stint, and can hold off for the slicks, then I can make up for it in terms of that pit stops, because there are going to be a lot of people that come in, you know, kind of that before halfway or even at that halfway point. And as we see here, I wanted to make a note of this point. It's hard to tell, but I was nudged in the back coming off of that awful corner where I did kind of get into the grass, and that actually caused damage to Magnuson's car. You can see he is falling back pretty quick. We've already gained a second on him. He did get the back of us as we were trying to get back on the throttle, coming back onto the track, and he ended up having to pit and got sent to the back for that. That way he could replace his front wing. You might have actually been able to see that in the beginning section of the video. Just there was a small chunk that you could see flying in the replay. And then at this point in the race, we are at the halfway point. It has stopped raining, so I am gambling. I'm gonna say that, you know, the track's drying up fairly quickly. I mean, you can see a clear path that a lot of the cars are running through on the racing line. So I'm gonna go ahead and take the gamble that we'll be able to switch on slicks, so all these people would have to have an extra pit stop over us, which really has us in the effective position that we currently sit in, assuming track conditions change. But there's still a lot of race to go, because we are only a little over halfway through right now. And this is definitely the point where I realized that I'm gonna have to drive a lot differently, because tires were not nearly as responsive. And this is kind of where I got a little flustered too, because starting from lap 9 on, I was constantly starting to check the tire status, the weather status, all that fun stuff, just to try and figure out like how I was going to make this all work, and in terms of the strategy, because I did not want to get caught out on the wrong tire by any means, and I really didn't want to be on the intermediates any longer than I needed to be, just because I really did start to struggle for grip a little bit, and this was a real sloppy section. I was more worried about checking my tires, and that ended up letting Vettel get by me even after I overtook him, but he did a great move to get back underneath. And you can kind of see I am just kind of really struggling for grip, but I'm still determined, and I deservedly get that warning. But I was still very determined at this point to stick to my guts and say, you know, this track is going to switch to slicks here shortly. And that was what they kept saying in the tire status too, because I was constantly checking for the most part, and almost every time it would just say, you know, we still think intermediates are the tire to go with right now, but it won't be too long until we switch to slicks. But you can kind of see with how far Vettel's pulling away my tires have really fallen off compared to everybody else on fresh tires, and it's really costing me at this point. So finally, we're coming up with 5 laps to go. We do have to make a pit stop, and I mean, you can just kind of see the disaster we're in. Stroll is easily able to get by us. We're extremely vulnerable. We're going slow through corners. We have multiple cars right behind us. Ocon, Danny Kvyat, and I'm just searching for more information at this point, just to see, you know, if I have the opportunity. I wanted to switch to slick tires on this lap, so I decided to box, and that's what we're gonna stick with. At this point, they still haven't given me the go for slick tires. I'm still losing position after position as the AlphaTauri gets around me too. So I decide enough is enough, and I'm gonna pit and try and salvage any last bit of this race. And these last few corners really show just the struggle that I was having with grip, and I mean, it was just disastrous. These tires were gone at this point, and I mess up horribly, and that is going to end our race on a huge mistake as we are into the pit wall, and that's how it ends for us. We just completely destroyed the front of the car. You hate to see it, you really do. Not much I could do about it at that point. I do regret staying out as long as I did looking back on it, but I really thought that it was the right strategy call, because, you know, the rain had stopped for a good while and the track was drying off insanely quick at the beginning. Like, you could visibly see the difference, and it looked like it was not far away from switching to slicks. But unfortunately, timing just did not work out in our favor, and, you know, the strategy ended up being the wrong call after all. And thankfully, there was a DNF before the crash. You might have seen it on the screen. Lando Norris DNF'd at one point. So at the end of the day, though, it really doesn't matter to us, because it didn't help us in the rivalry, nor did it get us any points. So really, it didn't matter whether we got 21st or 22nd. At the end of the day, there's no difference in that. So we take our losses, and we are back at the garage, just adding through some of the activities, kind of trying to figure out how we can build momentum going into next week, because we are still, you know, 7th in the constructors, within shot of moving up, and, you know, we're near the top 10 in terms of individual performance. So there's still a lot of good to come from this season, especially because this is only the 6th race, and then going into big race at Monaco next week. We really do want it to be a good one. We did get a few upgrades to come through, and I think we might be expecting one more before the race. Or no, that was the one that came through. So we do have a nice new upgrade that came in. Hopefully that will produce some fruitfulness going into Monaco. I know we'll need to qualify well, because it is hard to overtake at Monaco, and we'll just have to see how it goes from there. Obviously, this wasn't a banner week for the team, as again, we come away with no points, but that's expected throughout this initial part of the series. Like I've said in previous videos, I really don't expect too much from this first season. We're just really looking to build up the team going into the next few seasons, and really put something strong together, and just be competitive and fighting. Be a resilient team. So if you enjoyed the video, or really like coming along on this journey with us, please hit the like button, or even subscribe if you feel like it. I really appreciate all the support that comes from you guys watching this, and really joining in on this journey as we are trying to create the greatest and best team in Formula One. And that's why I post these videos, so you guys can really feel like you're a part of the team and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, we're getting there. We'll get there. and there will be more of these to come. So as always, thank you for watching. Be blessed. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.